Today on the Big 3 in 30, the Ravens bring in Diego Pavia.
The Ravens are reportedly taking a chance on a high-profile quarterback prospect.
The Chiefs draft LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier.
I wondered if the Chiefs could go Nussmeier just because the value seems to be there.
And the Chargers come away happy after day 3 of the NFL draft.
Some pure, unadulterated speed for Mike McDaniel's offense.
This is the Big 3 in 30 NFL, the 3 biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 in 30 NFL starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 in 30 your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Ravens are bringing in Diego Pavia to rookie minicamp after the former Vanderbilt quarterback went undrafted over the weekend. Kevin Ostreicher with Locked On Ravens gets into what kind of shot Pavia has in Baltimore.
The Ravens are reportedly taking a chance on a high-profile quarterback prospect with an invite to minicamp this upcoming weekend. So that's the big story everybody's talking about right now. And it certainly is one kind of surprising and unexpected, but I do understand because there is a spot open for the third quarterback spot, which I don't think is going to be anyone that makes the roster, but potentially a practice squad quarterback. And the Ravens are taking a chance here reportedly on one of the highest profile quarterbacks in this class, in Diego Pavia out of Vanderbilt. Now, Pavia went undrafted, and he's a guy that finished second, runner-up in the Heisman this last season. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana won the award. And look, Pavia is an extremely talented player. I mean, burst onto the scene over the course of his season in 2025, where, you know, he led the Vandy program back to relevancy, I guess, if you want to call it that, where he ended up putting up 29 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, and that followed up a 20-touchdown, 4-interception campaign in 2024 after he transferred for a couple years, or after a couple years at New Mexico State. He's someone that when you look at what he actually brings to the table, I mean, he's confident in more ways than one, especially on the football field, and he's a guy that is a dual threat option. You know, he does have that rushing ability to him. Last year at Vandy, rushed for 862 yards on 167 attempts with 10 rushing touchdowns. That was a college career high for him. So he does bring that. And I think he, again, with the way that the Ravens want to play football, he does fit that. He also has pretty solid accuracy on the move, which is good. He's able to make those flashy big plays and kind of go off script. But, you know, the big negative with him is obviously the measurables, where I believe he was listed around 6 foot at Vanderbilt, if I'm not mistaken, but measurements revealed him more around 5'9", 5'10". I think he was officially listed 5'10" and 1/8. I saw some sites list him at 5'9" and some change. So again, the makeup, it's very rare to see a quarterback with that makeup make the NFL. It's not impossible, obviously. You know, if you can play, you can play. It doesn't matter your height, but obviously with the quarterback, there are concerns about throwing over the line and seeing over the line and that stuff. And not in like a joking way. I'm being serious about, like, you know, like that's things that teams worry about. That's something that teams actually think about. So there's also some patience that he needs to improve on in terms of some of the split safety looks and really reading that a little bit better. Sometimes he floats his deep throws with too much air under the ball, and that allows defensive backs to recover a little bit. But obviously I don't know. I guess one of the big things with him is some of the stuff that happened, the distraction level stuff, I guess, off of the field. You know, obviously after losing out on the Heisman, there was a whole big controversy because he ended up going to, well, first he posted an Instagram story where it read F all the voters, but family for life. And then the next day, or maybe it was that morning, that night, he went to a nightclub and he apparently bought or held a sign that read F Indiana. So obviously that was interpreted by a lot of people as a slight at Mendoza. You know, he's very feisty, and, you know, I like competitive spirit. He has competitive spirit. But from what I read about it, like a lot of different people, there were some concerns, and he's been taking advice, and one of, I guess, his mentor is Johnny Manziel, which, to Manziel's credit, he's kind of like cooled down a little bit, and he actually was like telling Pavia, hey, learn from my mistakes, learn from Johnny, don't be Johnny off the field. He said he had so much opportunity and he threw it away. He said Diego's young and lit, and it's easy in that position to get out of control, but I'm trying to give him the best advice I can. He's listening. I think he is, so that's a blessing. So, again, I think everyone's going to make the memes, oh, Johnny Manziel's mentoring Pavia and all that stuff. And so he's at least giving advice. I don't know if it's like the official mentor title. I'm not exactly sure about that. But, yeah, I mean, Manziel's certainly giving him advice as well, and just kind of how to handle just everything. But it is a big concern with him. He is high profile. He is someone that I think earned an opportunity in the NFL. There's also controversy with him not having an agent. So, of course, here in Baltimore, we are that is nothing new here in Baltimore with the Lamar Jackson situation. And guess who wrote about it? Mr. Mike Florio. So, of course, Mike Florio finds his way into this conversation. So, you know what? I guess he's consistent on it. And even if it's just for Baltimore Ravens quarterbacks, and, obviously he posted this on April 25th. So it wasn't officially announced then. But again, this is just on an invite basis, right? Adam Schefter and Matt Zenitz, multiple people reporting here that Diego Pavia is accepted an invitation to the Ravens minicamp next weekend. So nothing set in stone, right? It's just an invitation, but there is an opportunity for Pavia maybe to carve out his role as the Ravens practice squad quarterback. They currently don't have someone in that role. Obviously, it's Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley. So if Pavia can come in there, do his thing, and get a spot and just work throughout the preseason, I think, look, does he make the roster if all that happens? Probably not. But, at the end of the day, there's a non-zero chance that maybe he could be the guy for them. And the Ravens actually brought in Joe Fagnano, the UConn quarterback. So I guess that will be the competition potentially. And the Ravens do need a third quarterback. Like, they need to have a guy on the practice squad if it's not going to be the third quarterback on the roster. So there's there is an opportunity here for Diego Pavia. And while it wasn't what I was expecting, there was a little part of me that during the draft process, I'm like, well, what if there is a quarterback that falls that they like, and maybe they'll spend one of their sevenths on that guy. They didn't obviously do that, but there was quarterback's not a need for the Ravens. We know that. They have their starter. He's a star. They have their backup. He's awesome. You got to have insurance. I mean, maybe he can be Trace McSorley was kind of high profile in a different way, obviously, but maybe he can be the Trace McSorley of the Ravens, where he just kind of sticks around for a few years, learns the system, is there and available, potentially their quarterback rule and all of that. But this is super intriguing to me. Again, I think there's potential there. The size stuff, especially for quarterback, I think means a little bit more. But look, he can play. It's just going to be a matter of kind of cleaning up some of those other things. And look, he is not like an NFL starting guy day one here, right? Like, any opportunity he was going to get, he was going to probably have to claw his way, maybe a backup role at the very best. But he's someone that does need a little bit of refinement in some of the stuff that he does. And hey, man, who better to learn from than Lamar Jackson, right? Be in that room with him, learn from him, Tyler in there as well. I mean, you got two high-level quarterbacks there, and I think it's a good situation for him. So that third quarterback competition, and again, he's polarizing, so he's going to bring a lot of headlines and storylines and all that type of stuff, especially with the player that he was at Vandy and how good his year was, and leading Vandy to the year that they had last season and all that, the Heisman stuff. There are going to be a lot of headlines with him that come. But, Baltimore clearly sees something there, even if it's just on a tryout basis here at minicamp. I would not be shocked if Baltimore brings him in and has him compete throughout the offseason and just see what he has. I don't think there's any harm in it, like maybe they have to choose between Fagnano and Pavia, and that's a decision they'll have to make. Maybe they'll make that after minicamp. Maybe they won't. And maybe they'll just bring in both guys and say, hey, compete. We'll see what happens. But there's an opening for it. So we could, if everything goes well for Pavia over the course of the weekend, see him get signed and then, or just, brought in for training camp, and then, maybe get cut during final cut down day after the preseason, and it's an opportunity. So it's cool it's a cool story. Like it was surprising. I didn't expect the Ravens to go Pavia's direction, if I'm being honest. There were a few other guys I was thinking about. Pavia was not really one of them. I thought he could have gone in the 6th or 7th. Like I thought a team was maybe going to take a flyer on him, but he's someone that he has a personality. He is super competitive, and with all of the stuff about how polarizing of a player he is in multiple different facets, it certainly is another added element to everything involving him. But look, I mean, he backed up the play on a football field. Is he a perfect prospect? No, but he's someone that I think could be, the Ravens' third quarterback.
The NFL draft has come and gone. It's a place where preparation meets opportunity and every decision matters. It's all about being ready when your moment comes. And the same mindset applies off the field too. That's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette offers treatments designed to help you feel ready and confident when it matters most. Their top option, Rougiette Ready, is a mint that dissolves under your tongue with a clinically proven ingredient. And they also offer Go Long, designed to help with both performance and control. It's all about showing up at your best whenever your moment is. Head to rougiette.com/LockedOnNFL and get 15% off your ED treatment. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Rougiette, performance medicine for men. Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 NFL. The Chiefs added quarterback Garrett Nussmeier in the 7th round with the 249th pick of the draft. Ryan Tracy and Chris Clark with Locked On Chiefs break down the value and what he can bring into Kansas City.
As we got ready to start this, I wondered if the Chiefs could go Nussmeier, just because the value seems to be there, and they've been a team that has gambled on players that have injury history or some sort of injury before if they think their medical team will sign off on it and they're okay. So this is an interesting one to me. If I was betting, I probably wouldn't have bet on Kalshi that they would be taking a quarterback in the 7th round, because they haven't been taking a quarterback ever since they took Patrick Mahomes. They haven't drafted one, I don't believe. So at this point, though, and the other thing that's interesting is he going to be available and ready to go for minicamp or OTAs? I don't know where his medicals are, but
right.
Well, but where I'm going with that is, I talked about NFI when they originally drafted him. I don't know where he is medically, if he can play. But the other interesting part, and something we talked about this offseason, was they needed to find more QBs, because you were going into this offseason with Mahomes not being able to be ready for OTAs, probably not being able to do anything in training camp, which is what the expectation is. And Chris Oladokun was your only guy. They go out and get Justin Fields. Now they have now they've drafted Nussmeier. We'll see whether or not he's going to be available. And they added another one in the offseason as well. But this is an interesting pick, because if they hit on it, he is a 3rd round value for most people. Where did you have him ranked?
I will show you this. And it's funny because, folks, before we started the stream, this is the last player Chris asked me about. Like, what do you think is going on with him? Because I have Garrett Nussmeier as my number 2 quarterback in this class. Part of that is because I'm not a believer that Ty Simpson can walk into a situation. I think the Rams did a good thing in parking him behind a veteran. We'll see if the team actually likes that, because apparently McVay doesn't. I don't know. We're going to find out if that's
it. Sure seems like McVay doesn't.
It could all be an act too. I would not put it past him unless to put on a whole show, but it is what it is. But just in projecting who can come into the league, has the knowledge, and can do this, Nussmeier was my 2nd best quarterback. That's epic value. Even if you didn't agree with me, Daniel Jeremiah, Todd McShay, most of the analysts that I trust in the media agreed he was at least a top 100 pick.
Yeah.
So that goes a long way in telling you the value you have. And while I have the board up, and I swear I'll take it off after this, I just want to point out to Beach's comment, we're Bernard. People laughed at me 2 weeks ago when I said, hey, I'm going to put him on my board. And they derided me on Twitter when I put him on my board as a value, because he's never played football, ever. And that is a serious concern. He is just such an athlete. You had to take a chance on it. Same thing for Nussmeier. Taking a chance on an injured player, and the injury is significant, in the 7th is a gamble worth taking.
Not only that, but a QB. Like, think about the value you could possibly get if he can legitimately play, not necessarily even if he can play in 2026. Like, I'm beyond looking at 2026. If he has an injury that he has to sit and he has to miss the entire season, I don't care. It's a 7th round pick. They picked him thinking there's value there, and you have him in the 2nd round. Daniel Jeremiah had him at 101 in his top 150. I don't remember where Todd McShay had, but they had him in the 3rd round, or really close to the 3rd round. Like, all of them were very high on Nussmeier, but it is something that's going to be interesting. The other guy that had an injury that we talked about was McCoy, who went to the Raiders that I still don't understand. But we will see. When they drafted McCoy, I said the Raiders are going to Raiders, so we will see on that one. But I like this Nussmeier pick. I do think that he's joining his teammate in Mansour Lane in Kansas City at this point.
And I know LSU under Brian Kelly was not the traditional LSU, but it still is a program of note. It still is that reputation. I just pulled up Justin Fields' contract, and it is 2026 and a bunch of void years. Yep. So it's a 1-year contract. So this allows the Chiefs to stash Garrett Nussmeier. It is a cyst that they found on his spine, and that's why he was not generating power. He was not able to use his legs to drive the ball, and that's why he looked so remarkably worse in 2025 than he did in 2024, when there were people that had him as QB1.
And you have to wonder, quite frankly, when you look at this, think about how this Chiefs draft has turned out. Peter Woods looked better in 24 than 25. Nussmeier looked better in 24 than 25. And I have to wonder, not necessarily, I'm not trying to take a shot at Woods. What I am saying is it just seems like there's a little bit of a similarity between some of these players and how that's working out. But when you look at the Nussmeier situation, if I'm Kansas City, if they feel okay with the guy and think that he can do something, shut him down for 2026. Have him go get the surgery, have him get it taken care of, and have him get his strength back, and have him get to a point where he's going to be ready to go and do something for you in 2027, because they have Justin Fields for a reason. They went out and got Justin Fields for a reason. I don't think Kansas City had any idea that they could get Nussmeier in the 7th, but I will say this. I said this when I saw what they traded to go get, was it Emmett Johnson that they went and traded up for. They traded away 210, and I didn't know at the time, but they got back 249. That wasn't originally reported, so I'm glad. But when I saw that they got back 249, I said I absolutely love that they got that pick back, because what that allows them to do is to go into the 7th round and pick somebody that you want, that you are not going to allow get to the undrafted free agent market, and you have to compete with everybody else. And they turn it into a quarterback that, quite frankly, some think could be a valued starter in the NFL at some point in his career.
I think he is a commodity. He has been at the top of his class at times, junior year in particular for him. It is the injury that did this. If that's corrected, and you give him the Mahomes treatment, if you literally do to him what Patrick Mahomes did and sat his whole first year, maybe you let him start that last game, because it ain't going to do Justin Fields any good, right? Justin Fields will be the primary backup. I think they will get him some snaps through the season, and he will leave in free agency and likely get an opportunity to play somewhere else. And then that gives you a
think about what that does
backup
too.
that's on a rookie contract.
But think about what that does too. If that happens, Kansas City loses Justin Fields, and Justin Fields is going to sign a contract that is going to give them a big comp pick because he's a quarterback.
Top 100. Yeah.
More than likely, yeah.
If he signs to start, it could be a top 100. And that's just gold. This is stacking the backside of it, because no one's saying that either of these quarterbacks is ever going to push Patrick Mahomes off the field, but their insurance and they're the ability to develop behind him. Because I think this signifies this is probably luck. If Nussmeier had been taken 2 rounds earlier, I think Noah Whittingham might be the guy that just got drafted, so he didn't have to go to UDFA, right? But this is the way it worked out. And so now they're stacked up and they have commodities for the future they can develop and trade or whatever, or at the very least, get comp picks for.
Yeah. And now you're in a situation where you feel like you at least have a guy. And here's the key. Here's why I also think that they did this year. Obviously, you have to look at the math. There's no way I think that they're going to put him in a situation where he is going to be on the practice squad, because somebody will sign him off the practice squad.
Exactly.
So in my opinion, this is a move where they're expecting they're going to put him on NFI or IR or something, and he's going to get stashed with this injury and will be somebody that they will be looking at in 2027, because they went out and they got Justin Fields and they haven't carried 3 quarterbacks on the active roster for I don't know how long. That's not going to happen in Kansas City.
We're going to be talking about this again in August when we're like, so does he have to be on the roster for one day before he can go to IR? That's what we're going to be talking about.
I'm pretty sure they changed that rule, though. I think
Did they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did, to where you can just put him on IR, because it became like there's a limit to the number of players that you can do it with, but they didn't want to have it be a situation where you had to potentially lose players, so they changed that rule, which I think is smart on their part. There's no reason to put yourself in a situation where you have to. But I don't even think he gets there. I think he ends up on NFI, because it's a non-football injury, technically speaking.
True.
Regardless of what it is, it's a non-football injury getting into the NFL, because it's not NFL related. It didn't happen in the NFL. So I'm pretty sure he can go on NFI. And if they put him on NFI, I'm 95% sure his season is over at that point. Yeah. I will have to do some checking on that. But that would not shock me. And like I said, I don't care with the 7th round pick. That's one of the best things you can possibly do. If you could turn this into even a 4th round pick or something like that in 2 years or in 3 years, you got your value.
Yeah, absolutely.
Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed. That's according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves. It's over at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support your show by saying you heard about Indeed right here. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Welcome back to the Big 3-30 NFL. The Chargers wrapped up the draft with 8 total picks and a clear focus on building some depth up front. Daniel Wade and David Drogmeyer with Locked On Chargers sort through what stood out most in the final day of the draft.
Daniel, we got to get into the rest of the 2026 Chargers draft class, including a couple of defenders, getting guys on the defensive line and on the back end at safety, and on the offensive line, getting your swing tackle of the future, and some pure, unadulterated speed for Mike McDaniel's offense.
Speed that we've been clamoring for a very long time, but I guess getting Mike McDaniel in the building definitely helped that a little bit, because the Chargers took the fastest wide receiver in the draft and one of the fastest we've seen in recent history with the first of their 4th round picks. This was the one they got from trading back from 86 and picking up additional day 3 picks. The Chargers go with someone who, if you've listened to the show before, you've probably heard about. It is Brennan Thompson, the wide receiver from Mississippi State. I think we had him at least in 1 or 2 of our drafts. Someone we really loved around the late 3, kind of early 4 part of the draft, which is kind of where we expected him to go. He was kind of a tweener, though, somewhere around 100 on the consensus board, so probably a little early in 3, maybe a little bit too late if you're still picking at 123. But since the Chargers decided to trade back, they kind of found themselves in the sweet spot to take Brennan Thompson. And if you haven't seen the clip on the Chargers social media and you wonder why they took him, you'll see the clip of Mike McDaniel saying, if you somehow find a way to get Brennan Thompson, I'm taking my shirt off in the war room. So very easy to see why the Chargers would be interested, David. We know if there's one guy in the NFL that can tailor an offense or specialize in getting the most out of small wide receivers, it's Mike McDaniel. And that's what this guy is. I mean, a complete explosive factory, but also one of the smallest players in the draft. And I think what you get from this, though, and why they make this pick is because what it opens up for your offense. Having someone with the explosive ability of Brennan Thompson, it's very easy to see how he would fit in and what Mike McDaniel wants to do.
Absolutely. And I understand when you think of a wide receiver that's really small and really fast, you think, oh, well, he's not going to be able to play on the outside. Not this guy. Brennan Thompson absolutely can play on the outside because he does a really good job of making sure he doesn't get hands put on him. He uses quick releases to get open, and he can track the ball really, really well over his shoulder, a lot better than most players his size. And, oh, by the way, we're talking 4.29 speed. I mean, just unbelievable. And you see it routinely. This guy's like 7-Eleven because he was always open. Unfortunately, the quarterback play didn't really allow him to get the ball as much as even, the big numbers that he put up maybe, would suggest. Honestly, he could have put up an even bigger stat line than he did, and he still had an impressive year with 57 receptions, over 1,000 receiving yards, and an average of 18.49 receiving yards per reception. That is ridiculous. It's unbelievable. Also 6 receiving touchdowns and just a big play machine. We're talking about, what was it? 5 plays over 40 plus yards last year.
5 plays over 50 plus yards, 10 plays of 40 plus yards.
There it is right there. I mean, it's just, and the thing is I think he's a good route runner as well. He does a really good job of snapping off his routes. He's able to sink his hips and really turn around, present a good target to the quarterback. It's really easy to understand why Mike McDaniel would want him in the offense and why he is going to be able to scheme up some very diabolical things for him against opposing defenses.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one thing to run a 4.26 40, right? But it's another thing when you actually see it. Like when you can actually see it on the tape and how he's pulling away from defenders if he just gets a slight angle on them. Is just something that, is very easy to like, very easy to see why the Chargers would be interested. But also, because of the size, you're not seeing anyone actually, be interested enough to drop a 3rd-round pick on him, which is why he lands in the Chargers' lap. But most importantly, just not a skill set you had in your wide receiver room. You didn't have the burner guy. You didn't have the deep threat kind of guy. And unlike other kind of small guys like we saw in this draft, like the Deion Burks of the world, the Zachariah Branches, other, electric type of players, this dude did average almost 20 yards per catch, right? Like that was his game. And I think what you saw with the route running is just the threat of him getting behind you and just having no chance to catch up really kind of made guys respect,
they have
having to the double move, right? Like, so when he does snap off a comeback or a hitch route, it's like, you can try to jump it if you want, but if that's the time he's, deciding to throw a double move on at that point, now you're even more in the dust. But of course, a really small receiver, but I do think you're right. Like there is a little bit more to his game than just, being a speed receiver that's just outrunning guys. Honestly, the most important part of being a deep threat kind of receiver like that is the ability to track the ball. And that is something I think what kind of changes this guy from maybe, the normal kind of speedster type of players. Like this dude, the amount of ball tracking, the amount of times he had to adjust to go get a ball right and just ran under it and found a way to bring it in over the shoulder was super impressive. And also I think it's nice when you've seen, Mike McDaniel have success with guys like Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. You've seen, guys like Sean McVay take Tutu Atwell and guys even smaller than this and find a way to have success. And it's just a time in this league that you can actually have guys this small and still, get something out of them, have them be legitimate weapons. But I think what this move does for guys like Rondé Gadsden, guys like Ladd McConkey that really attack the middle of the field, like this makes you respect it. Like you have to respect the speed of Brennan Thompson. Now, he also has to stay on the field because, I mean, obviously the first con here is that he was one of the smallest players in the draft, 5'9", 166 pounds, which is obviously not a body type you see a ton of.
No, it's not. So, yeah, I mean, he was the lightest player at the combine by 10 pounds. So it really wasn't even close. And to be honest with you, like, I actually appreciated the effort that he was able to give as a blocker. I think it was a little bit more than I was expecting with a man of his size. Obviously, he's not going to be, running anybody out of the way, but he does enough to try to get in the way. But when you have a smaller body profile like that entering the NFL, injuries are always going to be a concern. You have to keep that, and that has to be something that's held into account when you have a body type like this. So you're gonna have to protect him, and you're gonna have to use him in the right way, so you can try to keep him upright and keep him on the field, so he can help you throughout the year. Because this is a guy who reached the top speed of 24 miles an hour, which is absolutely insane. Just real speed, and can be a real difference maker. But you can't help anybody if you're not on the football field. So it's very, very important that the Chargers try to protect him. Hopefully they can try to put a little bit more weight on the frame, try to get him a little bit sturdier so he can put up with the rigors of the violence and physicality that you're going to see at the NFL level.
Yeah, of course, and who knows how much he can really add on. Obviously, I think he has some explosiveness to burn, right? So you're not really worried that would kind of take away the special parts of his game. Never going to be like a contested catch guy, obviously, right? Really small. Like even Jalen Waddle, you would compare him because they're both small. He was 180 pounds coming out, right? So that's even clearing Brennan Thompson by about 15 pounds. And it is a dude who can get ragdolled at the line of scrimmage if a corner gets their hands on him. Yeah. Now, it's very tough to do. He has a pretty good release package on the outside, and you have to be careful with how aggressive you are, because if he gets that one step on you and you do miss that punch at the very beginning, it could be game over for you, right? But this is the guy that so many of us have wanted for Justin Herbert so long, a guy where it's just like, hey, Justin, throw it as far as you can. We'll get you a guy that can run underneath it. Yeah. He can do that, right? And I mean, the amount of times you just saw him get behind a defense was crazy. So
a lot.
Not a super diverse route tree, I would say, at Mississippi State. Didn't really get used as a return man, which you would think for someone at his size would get used a lot of. He had one punt return and, of course, took it for 44 yards. Pretty impressive. Probably a guy that should have been used more.
Probably a little bit more than that. Yeah.
In that regard, too. But I love the pick. This is a guy we had kind of the Chargers had a couple of different directions they could try to add that new weapon. I think what you wanted was to get something you didn't have, a non-redundant skill set. That's what Brennan Thompson brings to the table. And man, it'd be surprising if we're not seeing, a few electric plays, a couple of real deep bombs next year from Justin Herbert to their newest 4th round pick, or the first of their 4th round picks. But Chargers had a bunch of those, right? We still have more to get into. And one of the things they were able to do because they traded back was go get a swing tackle and spend a decent pick on it to get a player, that has some real potential as a developmental swing tackle, and not put all their eggs in the Trey Pipkins basket.
That's all for today's Big 3 in 30 NFL. If you follow basketball or college sports, the Big 3 in 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and on campus going up every week, just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA or the Big 3 in 30 College, wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 3 in 30 NFL.